Hi everybody, Obsidian here, and just here in a moment I'm going to show you how I get this disgusting looking neck slash. I am really excited to have my channel up and running again just for you guys, and I would like to let you know that I'm going to be uploading at least one video a week, and feel free to post any comments or even make requests. If there's anything specific you'd like me to recreate or even just try, if you have any ideas, just let me know and I would be more than happy to give it a shot, okay? So, I'm going to show you how I get this neck wound, and stay tuned. Thank you! What we're going to need is our materials. We're going to start with a Graftobian sculpting wax. That I find very easy to use. We're also going to pair that with a liquid latex, also by Graftobian. We're going to use this Cinema Secrets Gel Blood. You can also use something, there are recipes on YouTube for how to make it out of glycerin. We'll be using this Graftobian setting powder, but if you don't have anything by Graftobian, you can use baby powder if it's talc free. We're going to be using two different brushes today. The first of those brushes being this flat brush. We're also going to be using this one. It's a blending brush. You'll be using this to apply the setting powder. You'll be using two palettes as well. The first of them being this one. It's a foundation palette. I'm not quite sure who it's by, it was a gift. We'll be using it for these darker colors that you see right here, just to outline where the cut is going to go. This is another foundation that I use a lot. This will be used initially for the cut. It's Nude by Maybelline Air Foam. You'll need this little spray bottle, it has water in it. The other palette you'll be using is an eyeshadow palette with a red, and that has to be matte. We'll be using this darker red today. And then I'll be using this little red feather to be applying the blood, but you can use a brush if you like. We'll put the blood in this white palette I have here. And because I have a microdermal on my collarbone, I'm going to be covering it. I'll be using duct tape. And I've got my little cotton ball here to absorb any blood. And I'll be using this needle to open up the wound. Now you don't have to use a needle if you're not comfortable with it, but I prefer the needle. I just like how it looks, I like how it opens things up. But you can use tweezers if you prefer. Tweezers work just fine. Let's get started. So I've already covered up my dermal. The duct tape didn't work too well. We're going to take our flathead brush and one of the darker foundations from our foundation palette, and just get it on the tip of the brush. You don't need it on the whole brush. We're not drawing a very heavy line today. We're actually drawing a really thin line. For those of you who haven't done this before, I'm following a crease in my neck, but if you don't have anything to follow, you want to brush it right along the center of your jugular. If someone were to slice your throat open, that's where they'd go. The jugular tends to bleed more. It's also where you breathe. So it's sure to kill you. So we're just going to go right along the jugular here. Try and make a nice clean line. Clean lines are easier to cover. And don't worry about blending. This line isn't going to show up by the end. So now that we have our line, we are going to take, I have this little wrench that I'm going to be using, but you can use a sculpting spatula. I just don't have one. And we're going to take our sculpting wax, and this sculpting wax is a modeling wax by Graftobian. We're just going to get a nice big glob on our spatula here, and then and it is difficult to get out this modeling wax. You can use something softer if you prefer. And now we're just going to roll this in our hands like this. And the reason we're doing this is just so that it goes directly onto our little line that we drew. If you're using a softer wax, you can just sculpt it right onto the line. It's no big deal. This way I feel it just makes it easier. And you want a nice long line. You want to cover as much of this line in one go as you possibly can. I warn you, this sculpting wax is sticky if you use Graftobian. So here we're just pressing it onto our line, and you want to blend out. This wax can be kind of tricky to blend out, so you have to kind of be patient and manhandle it a little bit. It likes to come off to begin with, but once you get it blended out, it's no big deal. This did give me a little trouble. So you want to press and pull. That's how you blend this. You press and pull. And yes, this position did help a little bit. And this wax, I believe, yeah, the wax itself is latex free. So if you want to just use the wax, you can. You don't have to use the latex. I just think it's helpful. So that's how that looks. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward so you can see the completed scar. Now that my scar is complete, I'm just going to take this Velocity Lightweight Moisturizer, and I'm going to put a little bit in my palette, and then using my fingers, I'm going to apply it to the wax just to blend it all together and blend it out. All this does is it makes it a little smoother. You don't need to do this part. I prefer to, simply because that went on a little bit lumpy and I wanted to blend it together a little bit. But this is also going to end up being a very messy look in the end, so you can make it messy or you can make it clean. I just prefer to make it messy. I like how it looks. Now that that's done, I'm going to get some of the excess wax off of my fingers, and it just scrapes off with your nail. It doesn't stay on. Now we're going to take our liquid latex by Graftobian, and using our little brush, we're just going to brush it all over the wound. Try and make your edges a little bit neat. And if your edges don't turn out neat, there's a way to fix that. But just brush it all over the wound. You want to put quite a bit over over the bulge of the wax, and then blend it out. What this is going to do is not only is it going to hold it onto your skin better, but it also holds the wax together. I've had instances in the past where it just falls apart. It was a little embarrassing. And this process doesn't take too long, and don't worry about the whiteness. This wax does dry clear. It also turns this cut into a prosthetic, so you can peel it all off. Now I'm going to take my little sponge and I'm going to blend out my edges a little bit better. But when you go to remove this, the latex helps it all pull off at once, so you're not picking wax off of your neck. Now comes the fun part. We're going to take this with our foundation in our skin tone. Mine happens to be Nude Dream Air Foam by Maybelline New York. And I use this just because I like the coverage and it doesn't make my acne flare up. But whatever you use is fine. A powder will also work. Now the fun part. We get to open up the wound. We're just going to take our needle and just drag it straight across. And this part doesn't hurt. I've been told it looks painful, but it doesn't hurt. It actually kind of tickles a little bit because you don't want to press too hard. I mean, it's a needle. And like I said, you can use a pair of tweezers or whatever you prefer using, but I like my needle. This process did take a little bit of time, so I made this time lapse to show you the whole process. I did end up having to use a pair of tweezers for it, which wasn't a problem. And see, it opened up nicely. So now we get to do my favorite part. We're going to take our Cinema Secrets gel blood and we're going to pour a glob into our palette here. This stuff is really thick, it's like syrup, so it's easy to just pour in. And our little red feather, now you can use a brush if you prefer, but I like the feather simply because I can't find a brush, but a lip gloss brush will work. But it stays on my feather quite nicely because of how thick it is. And it just glob it into your wound. You can add as much or as little as you like, but because I'm morbid, I like to put a lot of blood. You also want to kind of work it up into the prosthetic so it looks like it's coming from under your skin. So now that you've got your blood in there, you want to take your setting powder and just set the prosthetic. And the reason I did this after I put in the blood is because I'm only putting in one layer of blood at the moment, so this gives me time to let my blood dry and blend this out. During this process, I'm also going to be reddening the outside of the prosthetic just to make it look irritated and kind of puffy. And this does need to be well blended. Now that that's done, we're going to take our little spray bottle and getting it kind of close to the wound, you just want to spray it on, and this is going to cause the blood to run. This is what really makes the effect. Now because my blood was dry, I need to add more blood, but since the water is already in there, as I add the blood it's going to run. See, it's already running a little more. I'm going to take more water and just get really close in and spritz it on. Don't be stingy with this part. And that's all you need to do. You're done. And I really like how it turned out. I mean, so let's zoom out here, just so you can see how it looks from a distance. And there's your slit throat. Thank you for tuning in.